That's
yeah.
Okay.
That's the
You
one.
got it?
So
Yep.
you just need to maximize
Yeah, sure.
start presentation and it'll be good. Yes, excellent.
Okay. Here it is. Right.
Over to you.
Well, good day, everyone. With a lot of pleasure, I have prepared this presentation on the locations and minerals of the Volcanic Eifel in Germany. Though I live in the Netherlands, the Eifel region is my backyard, so to speak. I will start with a few general data and then concentrate on the 6 most visited quarries and the finds there. Well, there were 2 eruption periods in history. The first one in the Tertiary, that's between 46 and 16 million years ago. And in the Quaternary, about 1 million years ago. With the last one around 10,000 years in the past. There are more than 80 known eruption locations, and that only in the east part of the Eiffel. I don't know the number in the west part. The data are derived from the last edition in 2018 from the DVD Mineralien der Eifelvulkanen, or in English, Minerals from the Eiffel Volcanoes, from Blas and Emmerich. And research in 2020 showed that ground motion by a magma plume is still detectable and with slight ground elevation. The center is below Nürburg in Germany, but it can be detected where I live too. And luckily there is no threat of new eruptions, but the area is being kept an eye on. And there are in total 49 mineral collecting sites known. They are all basalt and lava quarries. Some quarries are still open to collectors, but a lot of them are no longer open, no longer accessible, due to liability issues, because there were some accidents and idiotic behavior from cross-motor drivers, quarter drivers, and also some irresponsible behavior by mineral collectors. I'll come to that later. In this presentation, the 6 most viewed, the most visited quarries will be done. But first of all, where are we? We are here. Here on the left side, you see Nürburg. That's where I live. And you can see on the screen the faint yellow lines. That's the border of the Netherlands. So this part here, that's Belgium. And on the east side is Germany. And from where I live, it's about 5 miles to Belgium and 8 miles to Germany. So this is a very narrow part of the Netherlands, the very south part, as you know, the shape. And the quarries in the Eiffel are about 150 kilometers from here. So it's you can visit even more than one in one day. And that's when the weather is nice, you can decide to go whenever you like. One thing here, these brown spots are an insult to the environment that are still working brown coal quarries. They are huge. And well, there are a lot of efforts going on to get these things closed. But until now, they're still open and they're still exploiting the brown coal. It's pollution that's unimaginable, but well, it's still, they still are in action. A little acknowledgement, most of the photos, the site photos are made by Jacques, because he is our free time photographer, I can say. A few I stole from Mindot. All the specimens are from my personal collection, except 2. It's said which 2 there are. And all the mineral photos, except 2 also, are from myself. There are some uncertainties, and well, you see that because they have a question mark under on the photo. The first one is Hotenberg. Sorry. The first one is Bell am Hotenberg. That's the most northern quarry from here. It's one of my personal favorites. There are 69 species described, and 2 of them are type locality species. Kersutite is a variety of amphibole, and that's very abundant in this quarry, and it's one of my favorites. And I'll show you a few of those now. This is very Albertite amphibole. Amphibole is very abundant in the whole region. You can find it in huge numbers of rocks in most of the quarries. And here's the first variety, of which Hotenberg is the type locality. It's very Albertite, and you can miss it because the green-pink color variation that you see in the picture is unmistakable. As you can see, I wrote the chemical formula below each photo as well as the field of view. You understand why amphibole is called a supergroup. The number of chemical elements that are interchangeable is large, as represented by the A, the X, and the Z in the formula, which means that there are a lot of varieties and they all have their own name, but making the distinction between those is virtually impossible without formal analysis. But this one is unmistakable, very Albertite. I just told you that Kersutite is the variety which is the most abundant of all there, in this quarry at least. And this is just one example, but every Eiffel collector must have dozens of them. And the shiny orange-yellow color, you can't miss it because this is Kersutite without any doubt. This is the first question mark. It's very probably to be apatite. It's a bit of a strange specimen. It's opaque instead of transparent, and with unusual color variations. In front you see a magnetite crystal, which is not very clear, but I think this is apatite, but I'm not quite sure. Now this is biotite, as you can see. It's always it's mostly formed as piles of sheets behind each other, and yeah, this one is very sharp, and the faces are well, not all the same, and the 2 small crystals besides, left and right, are pseudobrochites, and that's one of the other very abundant species in the Hotenberg. Hematite is so abundant that every rock with crystallizations contains a lot of hematite crystals, and almost always they are well developed. And what you see here is actually a twin with growth disturbances, and in my view that makes it more exciting than a flawless crystal. And this is a twin. Well, I think it looks good. Mullite is one of the characteristic minerals of the Eiffel. It's often accompanied by pseudobrochite and topaz. The color can vary from this white to purple. You see that later. And the distinction with topaz is not always easy because they look alike quite a lot. And when hairy, that's most likely to be mullite, but that's not always completely clear. This is the first pseudobrochite. It's in the whole Eiffel. It's quite often you can find it. The crystals are always well developed and sharply edged, and single crystals or groups with dark brown to black crystals that show a very high luster, like this one, are very popular. And I think that this one is a very attractive sample, I think. This is the second. Long brown crystals of pseudobrochite are characteristic for the Hotenberg quarry. You see that they are translucent if you're lucky. As usual, thinner crystals show more translucence than thicker ones, and you can see that here. There are even lighter colored pseudobrochites also, but they come, I'll show you those from another location. They're almost yellow, and this darker brown varieties are typical for this quarry. The third one from the pseudobrochites is a spray. They are very good to look at. You see that there's a lot of white spots on this sample because it was very hard to get rid of them. It's a reddish brown, but when you have smaller samples, then they can be bright orange too. But they mostly are very small. This one is a bit larger. 2 millimeters is not too small, but it is it's good to look at, I think. The pyroxenes are a group also because they also they contain interchangeable elements. You see that in the A and the B in the formula. There are two subgroups. That's orthopyroxenes and clinopyroxenes. And in the Eiffel, there are almost always clinopyroxenes. There are in some places also some orthopyroxenes, but that's just a minority. Most of them are clino. But determining the exact variety is virtually impossible without full analysis. I'm inclined to call this one agarine, but that would be a guess. I think it's speculation, because if you don't do full analysis, it's virtually impossible to make the right distinction. So we just call it pyroxene group. This is a neat one, I think. It's a single pyroxene crystal, which is just about 0.5 millimeter, even less, I think. And it has some sort of an antenna, but I don't know what it is. It is probably amphibole, that would be plausible, but well, you just can't tell. But it's a nice picture, I think. It's a nice find. This is unmistakable deep red, twinning like in this sample. It's rhenite. There can be no question about that. This is so typical that you can always you know that this is rhenite. There's no doubt about it. And here it's accompanied by a few hematites, and one kersutite, amphibole. But this is unmistakable. You can't miss it. Titanite. Titanites in Eiffel are mostly like pointy arrows, so this one is a bit of an exception. All the titanites in the Eiffel are very small and not easy to detect because, especially when they are pale yellow, which is mostly the case, then you have a very hard time discovering them. They are small, very small, and they blend into the background, so they're very hard to detect. That was the, no, there's still a topaz, also from the Hotenberg. It occurs in many quarries. They are always colorless, but just a few weeks ago I found one which is a bit yellowish, but let's say that they're always colorless and always well-developed crystals with good visible end faces. So they are relatively easy to recognize when they are a little thicker. When they're very, very thin, very narrow, then you could have a problem to make the distinction between topaz and mullite. But this is always topaz. The end faces can take different forms. But these pencils. This thing looks like pencils. That's I've never seen that before, so this is quite different than normal, I think. Okay, then the last one from this quarry, euconite question mark. It really looks like euconite, and euconite is rarely found in the Eiffel, and some places there are some eukonites found, but so far it's not described in this quarry, so it definitely needs formal analysis. So I'm going to do that one of these days. The shiny white center, by the way, is a result of the lighting. In reality, the crystal is completely brown, but it's very shiny, so it's hard to make a good photograph. But I think and I hope that this is euconite. That was the last one from quarry number 1. Now we go to the Berg. The Berg is the most famous of all, and also the most difficult to get access to. Berg means Bell Mountain in English, but to be precise, this is the Kaspar quarry, and there are over 200 described minerals found over the years, with 15 type locality minerals, and it used to be nirvana for micro collectors until it got too crowded. Nowadays you need special clearance, and that's very hard to get. And well, I think that most of us haven't been there the last many years. Amphibole, as usual, also here, this is a fabulous crystal, I think. They are all of them are eye candy, and from all the varieties, Richterite visually comes closest to this one, but once again, this is not a guarantee for correctness. So we call it amphibole supergroup and nothing more than that. But this is a beauty, I think. This one can be trusted more because this one was part of an old collection that, as far as I know, was analyzed. So we can be quite confident that this is really pyrrhosite. And so I never found it myself, so I have to trust the label. Let's hope that it's correct. Garnet is also a supergroup, and in the formula the X and the Z can contain a lot of different chemical elements, thus creating a lot of different varieties. Garnets in the Eiffel in this reddish yellow-brown color are androdites. And this one has a reddish brown hue, which, while the one on the next slide is yellow-brown in color. And you see the typical faces of garnets, especially in the one on the right side, the small face in the middle. This is garnet without any doubt. Aragonite is, of course, one of the commonest minerals that we know, but on this micro level, it often forms nice tufts and sprays, colorless, white, and almost all the quarries. But this is one of the best that I've seen. This, at first sight, this might appear to be magnetite, but that's not. The more small rectangular faces up here and down here, so in the top and in the lower left, they give it away. It's brownite, and apart from that, most magnetites in the Eiffel are more dull and striated often, whereas brownites are smooth and shiny. And but the real distinction is made by these faces, small faces here. The next one is cordierite. Cordierite is orange to brown, There's also a light blue variety called Indialite that also occurs in the Eifel. I have some of those in the collection, but alas, not good enough for a photo. A problem can be this proper distinction between cordierite and ozumelite, because they often occur together, that's one. And they are, in some cases, quite lookalikes, so it's hard to make a distinction sometimes. This is the next question mark. Eifelite is one of the type locality minerals from the Berg. And actually it's an end member of the Eifelite rudderite series. And I've named this Eifelite preliminary because it's elongated, where rudderite often, but not always, is short, prismatic, or even flat. And that may be wishful thinking, because Eifelite is very much more rare than rudderite, but formal analysis is necessary, so we're going to do that one of these days. And rudderite comes later in this presentation. Ettringen, besides Bell, is the village next to the Berg, hence the name of this type locality mineral. It's always water clear, six-sided, always in the form of very good visible crystals, and relatively easy to recognize. And to be precise, by the way, the Berg's co-type locality, the official type locality, is named as the East Eiffel Volcanic Field, according to Mendel. Okay, you can believe that or not, but this is Ettringen guide from the type locality, from Ettringen near the Berg. At first sight, you might think that this is probably calcite, but it's not. This is really analyzed as fluorite. It's officially analyzed, and this is a form of fluorite that's not too common, I think. But in the Berg, it's quite often, quite easy to find. You already saw a white mullite. This is the purple variety, and the color can vary from white to purple with all kinds of in-betweens. And this is quite large, actually. It's 3 millimeters, which is not too small. So you can make a nice picture of it. And the color is nice to look at, I think. Ozumelite, thick, black, six-sided, and a rough texture. Together, those are the characteristic features of ozumelite in this form, in any case. It also occurs as transparent blue crystals, but they are so small and so hard to detect that it's quite difficult to make good pictures of those. This is quite large, and it's unmistakably ozumelite. Nepheline is relatively easy to determine as six-sided, colorless, often vertically striated crystals and a flat top. And finding fresh ones is less easy because very often they are weathered or covered with impossible to remove dirt. So this is, and loose crystals that are can be distinguished from each other are are a good find if you find it. Nepheline is in the Quarry, I come to that later, is much more abundant there. Quartz, the horizontal striping tells us that it's formed at high temperatures, that's above 573 degrees Celsius. And therefore, we collectors, we call it high quartz, but that is not approved by the IMA. They just call it quartz. Yeah, well, we call this high quartz. On the right, there's sanidine. And this is sharp crystal. This is the first weatherite. It's perfectly hexagonal, mostly of a very faint yellow coloring, and mostly just short prismatic, like discs, you could say. It's often hard to recognize, very hard, because of the low contrast with the background. The background is often sanidine, which is colorless, and the weatherites are colorless to very faint yellow, so it's very hard to see them. And also here you can see the size of this crystal is just 0.5 millimeter. And that's in Eiffel you have very small, a lot of very small species. I'll show you some more later, which are even smaller than this. The third quarry is Mendig in the Dalles. The Dalles means sort of lowering of the ground. Next, together with the adjacent Wingertsberg, in the Dalles is a pumice quarry. And pumice, as you know, is so light that it floats on water. And at the same time, it's very tedious without much crystallization. The accompanying rock, on the other hand, is very brittle, and that often contains good crystals. Since a few years, the quarry is off limits for us. As I said, mainly because of misconduct of, on the one hand, quad and cross-motor drivers, and on the other hand, I'm sorry to say, a special brand of micro collectors, or mineral collectors, because in the quarry, deep blue Haween is in gem quality is very abundant, which is reason enough for a lot of people to dig irresponsibly and leave a mess. So since a few years, it's off limits. And that's because we are always quite successful there. There are 137 species, which of 8 are type locality. And as said, Haween you can find in gem quality. I'll show you one of those later. This is baddelite, if the pronunciation is correct. Baddelite is zircon oxide, so you can see the formula. So actually it's quite simple stuff. Zircon is abundant, quite abundant in the Dalles, so it's not too surprising that baddelite also occurs, but nevertheless it's quite rare. This one was a good find, and decisive is the rectangular shape here in the middle with slightly skewed, you can see that here also, skewed angular corners. So there's no doubt that this is baddelite. And there's another one on the next slide, that's this. The same shape, rectangular here with a bit skewed corners and in another color, but it's also baddelite. Fluorapatite. In the very brittle rock pieces that consist of a sort of mix of sanidine and volcanic glass, there are many cavities with surprisingly well-developed and well-preserved crystals. Fluorapatites almost always show good visible crystallization. Most of them are colorless and some are orange-brown colored, and you'll see that on the next slide, by iron, but all of them are completely transparent. And it's always been a mystery to me how they, in this very brittle material, which you can crack with your fingers, if you don't, if you're not careful enough, it breaks under in your hands. But these crystals can last there, and but there are a lot of them. The next is also from the same rock piece, but then this one is colored by iron. It's a sort of contamination, I think, but they are sharp and well preserved. This photo is from Zak, and the specimen is from Quarry. Quarry is one of our friends in our local Micromount group. Halloween is one of the members of the sodalite group. It's often deep blue and therefore highly appreciated. In the Dalles you can find chunks with gem quality up to 8 millimeters or so. So you can imagine that they are wanted. But crystals, well-developed crystals like this one here, they are very hard to find. You can see the isometric structure. It's clearly visible here. That's this face. So this is characteristic for or decisive for the sodalite group. And I'll come to some more varieties of this group later, and I'll tell you a bit more. But you know, this is very, very rare developed crystal. Lavanite, one of the things I showed you before was came from an old collection that I acquired years ago, and the same goes for this one. Lavanite is quite rare in the Eiffel. The sample is a very rich one. I got it on a mineral fair years ago, so I have to trust the label for the naming. Because if you find it yourself, the distinction between lavanite and amphibole is, to say the least, not easy. So I hope this is correct. I think it is correct, but you know, well, okay, you're never sure for 100%, I'm afraid. The second in the sodalite group is Nosian, with a question mark. The typical end phases, because you see up here, there's a tendency for some twinning, you could say. Here's the isometric structure again, so it is sodalite, there's no doubt. But it could be not only Nosian, but also sodalite or even Hoene. So actually, you should say that this is sodalite group and nothing more. But well, we have had so many from these in our hands that we used to think that we are inclined to think that this is Nosian. Oxycalcium pyrochlore. Pyrochlore crystals are without any exceptions always tiny, and the Eiffel as tiny as this one, 0.2 of a millimeter, you can see. Regular pyrochlore is transparent, yellow or orange. This opaque and brown variety used to be called betaphyte, but that was renamed by the EMI in 2010. Before you ask, I don't know what causes the color and the opaque habit, but it's oxycalcium pyrochlore officially. This is one of the best I have, I think. It's titanite. You see some more titanites later on, but yeah, this is so different from all the others because of the internal coloring from yellow to deep red in one crystal, or actually two. This is a second crystal actually, but this is the first and the last I've seen with these color variations in one crystal. So this is quite special to me. Tridymite. Tridymite is one of the polymorphs of quartz, as you know. And there are 7 polytypes within this polymorph. So tridymite can take 7 different polytypes. And this is one is 6-sided, as you see. And if you look closely, you can see, come on. If you look closely, you can see that there are 2 platy crystals behind each other. And this form of parallel growth is characteristic feature of tridymite in the Eiffel. And so this one is one of the 7 polytypes that tridymite can take, and I'll show you another one later. Zircon, when you find them, they are mostly pink, if you're lucky, but at the same time you're unlucky because in a short time after being exposed to light, the pink disappears and the thing becomes colorless. Or when you're especially unlucky, even dull. So this one is, I presume that it was pink when it was in its cavity, but now it's this color. The crystals are well developed. That's the one advantage of it. Right. This we really don't know what it is. I showed it to Jacques and some of my other friends, and no one has ever seen it or has ever has any clue what it could be. So I have to let this analyze, and there is a possibility that it's something new, because there's nothing, whatever I think from all the things that I know from there, we know from there, there's nothing which is compared to this. So we really don't know. So there's still a lot of excitement that this is one of those. Number 4, the Unnamed often lose the place where it is. Nowadays it's off limits, just like a lot of other ones. But in the good old days, when you wanted to try to hunt for Jeremy white, as you can see, topaz and pseudo-brochite are the most wanted minerals from there. But if you wanted to go there, you had to know the right spot, the exact spot actually. And just a small but very rich area here on the left side of the photo, it's up here. So in my head, I still know exactly where it is. And as far as I know, it's still there now. So maybe one of these days we're lucky and it lets in again. Biotite. Most are platy, and larger crystals often consist of numerous sheets stuck together. But that's not always the case. As you can see here in the Eiffel, every now and then you encounter thicker crystals that are most appealing when they are transparent like this one. And well, I think I have to go a bit faster because of the time. Quarry are very small, these two, but at least they are sitting freely on the matrix, so you can see the hexagonal structure. And in the Eiffel as a whole, it's quite abundant, but in the Wanaka here, it's quite rare, and very small again, with 0.2 of a millimeter. One of the top collectors that used to live in the Eiffel was Eugen Rondorf. This specimen comes from his legacy. Jacques Ferrier and I both have a box full of those, which we acquired on a mineral fair a few years ago. Corundum is not too rare, but mostly dark colored, so bright yellow, like this one, is an exception, and much more attractive, I think. And this is the most wanted of all. Jeremy white. The crystal is 0.3 millimeters high, and it's very small. And this one has one advantage: it is freely in a cavity. Normally, it's hardly to detect because it's covered or hidden in a lot of other things. And this. The photo in the collection is, the specimen is from the collection of Jacques, and he made the photo also. And making this photo is a hell of a job, so Jacques really did a great job doing this. And it's one of the best I've seen. I wrote a question mark here because there is not a full 100% certainty, but I dare to say that I'm 95% convinced that it really is Jeremy white. in this very special form, it really occurs in the Eiffel, and there's a photo of Mindot also, which is exactly the same as this one. So I'm pretty confident, but as usual, yeah, I would like to let it confirm, but I think almost certainly that this is Hilozyme white also. I show you this one because the distinction, as I said before, between mullite and topaz sometimes is tricky. In general, you can assume that the hairy stuff is mullite and spiky stuff is topaz. But nevertheless, how distinctive is that then in a case like this? So I'm not sure. There's always some doubt between mullite and topaz. This is, without any doubt, rutile in English. The metallic texture and the neat twinning with angles of 120 degrees are conclusive. There's no doubt about it here. Cellite is a halide that's chemically related to fluoride. This cellite is magnesium fluoride, and fluoride with T is calcium fluoride with D. The crystal structures are different though, whereas fluoride is isometric, cellite is tetragonal. In the Eiffel, crystals are found from completely transparent and colorless to opaque and white as this one. And they always come together with topaz, with sanidine, with sodium bruchite. The third one and the last from the sodalite group, that's the sodalite itself. If you follow the crystal ribs, they're faintly visible here. If you follow my arrow, then you can once again recognize the isometric structure. In the Eiffel, white and opaque crystals of the sodalite are often named sodalite. The sodalite group are often named sodalite, but consensus is far away, I think, because sodalite, nozian, and hoene are used at least in Mindot interchangeably. And I can't imagine the reason why, but if you look at the pictures in Mindot, they are not very convincing in my view. But in the end, all these things should be called sodalite group. This is the best topaz I have. In the Volcanic it's one of the most wanted minerals. So my friends and I, it's quite abundant. Also, my friends and I all have a fair number of samples in our collection. But this one is really by far the best one I have. Crystal clear, sharply edged. That's how you want it. And if you take a bit of a closer look, the triangled faces down here are the smaller crystals here in the front are the most common and therefore the easiest benchmark. This is always topaz here. This is one of the finest rarities that I have. The little balls are analyzed as being volcanic glass here, and the acicular crystals on them are without any doubt topaz. And this is the only sample where at least I have ever seen this combination. So this is a rarity, I think. The last one here from the Volcanic Eifel is to show you the complexity of the mineralizations. Most of the specimens occur in combinations. You have to examine every single specimen thoroughly to find out what's exactly in it and to find out what is what. So here you have pseudobrochite, zircon, and sanidine. Sanidine is very abundant, but this combination is, at least in the Volcanic Eifel, is daily practice. Right, number 5. The Hamilbar, Ullersdorf, that's in the west part of the Eiffel. It's been inactive since many years. But there are many collectors who still have old material to be examined, and I still have a bucket full of it. The roll that you see is the favorite spot in the quarry. It still lies there today, it's in the picture, and you can still go there. It's free entrance, you don't have to ask anyone, you can just go there. It consists of volcanic rock here, so this part, that is literally scattered with amphiboles, and it contains many xenolites, xenolites with cavities. So this is still, it's still a very good place to go. And the specialty in this quarry is rudderite. And Jacques, as usual, made this picture. This firelight and on the next slide, forsterite are the end members of olivine, where firelight contains iron and forsterite contains magnesium. And this is firelight, as can be inferred from the brown color, and the opaque texture, and the orthorhombic structure, let's see that here, and here of course, is clearly visible. This sample is one of my oldest finds from some 30 years ago. And the forsterite on the next slide is the other end member of olivine. It took me some time to figure that out, but the crystal shape was clearly orthorhombic. It's here, you can see that. And therefore, forsterite is the only logical conclusion in this environment. And it's, once again, very small. This is a peculiar one. Hematite occurs literally in every rock piece, as I said. So that's nothing special. But every now and then you encounter something which is really peculiar. The pastille form is definitely hematite. And amazingly, this thing balances on one single point here. There's nothing behind it. It looks like it's up in thin air, just one point down here. And the markings on it, I learned that from Jacques, thank you, are cristobalite. Yeah. Then we talked about pseudobrochite already. I showed you some from the Hotenberg quarry, which were all dark brown to black. In the Hamilbar, they have color variations from light brown to red brown to darker brown, and sometimes even within one single crystal. And that's what makes this one very special. This color variation here is hardly ever seen. And they are even lighter, as you should see that here. This is a light brown one. It's almost yellow. Here's almost, well, more orange-like, but that's also the influence from the lighting of the camera. And this is a red one, and the red ones are really red. So the pseudobrochites come in a lot of color variations, which make them very attractive. And the third one, the last one from the pseudobrochites from here, it is dark brown, but it is a very nice spray. And let's say another appearance of this mineral. Rudderite, as I said, you already saw a rudderite of a faint yellow color. But these are larger and therefore thicker, and so the color is deeper and brighter. And they are relatively easy to recognize because of the shape, the prismatic growth, and the road lines. And the structure here, the hexagonal structure, is a little visible here. So there's no doubt about it that this is rudderite. Sanidine is, without exaggeration, I mean, the most abundant of all in the Eiffel. Almost all specimens have a base of sanidine. And this here is an example of Carlsbad twinning, and as such, that's much less common. So this is quite a good find. Titanites, golden brown to yellow, golden yellow to brown, I must say. Highly lustrous, sharp as arrows, and that's titanites. And they're always very small, and they blend into the background, so they're hard to find. This one is relatively easy, and the next one is even more easy because it's bright yellow and half a millimeter long. It, yeah, well, it looks nice, I think. Tridymite, I showed you one before. I said it's a polymorph of quartz, and this is another polytype that forms under different temperature conditions. This sample is hexagonal and therefore is formed under high temperatures, at least 400 degrees Celsius. These are all growth disturbances, I think, growth lines also. And these striated crystals here are all rhyolithes. This is the last one from this quarry. From the Unnamed, I showed you topaz on volcanic glass, but this is the other way around. These are droplets of volcanic glass on amphibole crystals. And what you see is just 1.5 millimeter from a crevasse of 10 centimeters long and 1 centimeter wide in a rock piece that was just lying around there, and that I picked up on my way out 30 years ago. The last quarry is Hilozyme, the Golai, 76 species, a few type species, and a few abundances also, and a specialty. This is one of the few quarries where we as treasure hunters are still welcome. You have to be there though in the right time and find the right spot, because the ongoing exploitation of the quarry, the situation changes every week, and mineral-rich areas are scarce and small. So we went there 3 times last year in lockdown low periods. So all the finds in the next slides are from 2020. And the young man, thank you, Jack, on the photo is me, by the way. The first one, Ackermanite is a member of the melilite group and forms a series with galenite. Decisive characteristics here are the tetragonal tabular crystallization as well as this specific color. There was a moment that we thought this was another mineral, fresnelite, but that turned out to be wrong. This is Ackermanite. Alumo hydrocalcite is quite abundant in the growlite, but mostly forms white to faint yellow ball-shaped structures with hard to see individual crystals. So a sample like this is quite seldom to find, let alone a non-eroded one. These two are about 5 millimeters with flowers like these scattered over a rock piece of some 8 centimeters. So this whole rock piece is scattered with flowers like this, which is a nice museum piece in my basement. Combinations of several minerals are very common in the growlite, often chaotic, often hard to recognize. But you can find aesthetic samples like this one that are good enough to keep the components apart and not yet eroded. And this is alumo hydrocalcite flowers, small ones on nepheline. And this is one. It's a hell of a find, I think. Aragonite is not all too abundant in the Golai, but in general, it's easy to recognize. Mostly pointy, colorless, and often sprayed here, like this. So this is undeniably aragonite. And the same goes for the next slide, calcite. That's not abundant, it's not, but easy recognizable. So these dog teeth are unmistakably calcite. And they're well developed too. Flurkieite. Flurkieite has a name of being quite rare, but I think in the Grolai that could be there could be more than thought. It's chemically closely related to philipsite that also occurs here, and philipsite is much more abundant. But nevertheless, this is flurkieite, and you can see that by the flat roofed end faces here. They are flat, and the end faces of philipsite are saddleback roof end faces. So there's a difference, and the difference, you can see it if you look closely. So this is flurkieite. Yep, it looks a bit like a railroad sign, this one. If you see tiny needles in large quantities scattered throughout many cavities, you can almost bet that it's fluorapatite, almost always. And the mineral wrapped around these fluorapatites is probably philipsite, but I'm not sure. But it's yeah, it's quite nice, isn't it? Woolly white balls, woolly appearance, gonadite, and yeah, that's often that's a mineral that covers other things. So ball-shaped structures, which are good recognizable, are less common. But this is quite a good one, I think. Magnetites in the Grolai are mostly small, hard to detect, and often dull and damaged, as the most of the magnetites in the Eiffel always are. But sometimes they are shiny, smooth, and undamaged, and on a nice contrasting background. But you see how small these are. The whole picture is just 1 millimeter, so imagine the size of these crystals. This is a very rare find. The nepheline is nice and easy, of course. But the small rectangular crystal here on the left, is Wilhelmsenite. It's a miracle that I discovered it. And the whole picture is no more than 0.8 millimeter. So you can imagine how small this thing is. And it's the only one I ever discovered in Grolai material. But there must be more, but they're so small, and you must have lots of luck to even detect it. Nepheline, fluorapatite, and magnetite. That's the most common combination in the Grolai. Prismatic nepheline, of course. Needles of fluorapatite as usual. And tiny magnetites here on the left. And the hardest part is finding samples without damage or weathering, because most of them are so dirty that you can't do anything with it. Okay, you can do nothing with them. But this is yeah, quite clean. Perovskite is no doubt the most desired mineral of the Grolai. If you see them, they are easy to recognize, but finding them in a jumble of different species that occur together in the same cavity, that's another story. You can find them as blocky crystals in a row like this one. And it is, as usual, accompanied by nepheline and fluorapatite. So there are blocky ones like this one in a row, and tree-like structures like this one. The faint yellow sprays in the front are probably gutsanite, but could also be some amorphous material. And on the right, the inevitable nepheline again. And these are the most wanted of all the Grolai. Smectite is a group, as you can see in the formula. Sorry. It includes, it's a group of clay minerals that include species like montmorillonite, nontonite, saponite. They can take various colors in the grow line from yellow to bright orange, and the color and the caviar look makes it hard to confuse with something else. Thomsite could be confused. Sorry. Could be confused with other hairy species like aragonite or attringite, but the woolly cotton-like looks make Thomsite the most plausible, or maybe a mix somewhere in the attringite Thomsite series. Thomsonite, I go a little faster now, is without any doubt, or Thomsonite Ca to be precise, can be inferred from the numerous orthorhombic end faces here, that of the individual crystals that together form a relatively smooth ball shape. And the sticker itself here is nepheline, of course, and as usual, but this is Thomsonite. Finally, I'll show you some beauties from other locations. Brankite from the type locality, Schelkopf in Brank. That's in the east part of the Eifel. It often grows in radiated crystal groups, but sometimes loose like this. It's an old find from 1982 or so, because entering the quarry is off limits for years already. You never get in anymore. From the Berg, I showed you a few androdites of yellow, brown, and red brown color, but this one is almost black. That black is possibly caused by titanium, in which case it would go towards shordomite. That occurs in the Eiffel, but so far not has been described from this location, Dattel. So this is my own reasoning, with, as usual, some doubts, of course. From the type locality Hannebachite, Hannebacherlei is also closed for many years now. It's very sensitive and very brittle, and the crystals are a bit arrow-like and almost ultra thin. And handling them needs to be done very carefully. I have broken more than one in the past, and this is a rich sample of it. This is one of my best finds ever, sharp and shiny ozumelite from the Nickenich Weinberg, which is also off limits these days, on a bed of sanidine. And well, this is from a few years ago. You saw some perovskites. This is from Hannebacherlei, so from another location. But I wanted to show it because of the very typical tree-like structure and a more reddish color. Tridentrillimite, you saw a few of those already. In its simplest form shows hexagonal plates as you saw before. And in fact, this one is hexagonal too, in the same way as you can observe in ice crystals, of water ice. This is not too rare, and it's quite appealing, I think, from Hotenberg, which is also on the east side. Volbotite is almost very small, but easy to recognize. It just appears in a few places. It's almost very small, but easily visible because of the color. And the contrast is always easy to recognize. And the last one, we stopped by the end is the Z of zeophyllite from Brank also. In the Eiffel occur a lot of zeolites, and this is one of them. And the Z ends this presentation, so thank you. And I hope you enjoyed it. In a bit more than an hour.
Nice presentation, Henk.
Okay, thanks.
Good.
Lovely. Very, very nice.
Good, thank you.
Yes, well done, Henk.
I'll have to start looking at my stuff tonight.
No, it's really interesting because it's such a contrast to what I see in Cornwall. Because
Yeah,
the
sure.
geology is so different.
That's
Yeah,
the
so-
reason why that's the reason why I want to go to Cornwall.
There's nowhere to collect.
Yeah, I know.
Sheila,
It's worse than the Eiffel.
Well, we would, Steve Rust and some of our friends had a plan to go to Scotland, but because of Corona, that didn't take place. But we still have a rain check out because England and the United Kingdom there are a lot of places where you can find nice things. I hope.
yeah, Sheila, I have to say, you say that same thing every session.
I know. Don't care. I don't mind.
But next in 2 weeks' time, you won't be able to say that.
Good. Well, I'll probably see stuff. I took them
I'm not
there.
sure if Doug comes the next presentation in 2 weeks. It goes on Oregon again. That was the place I was going to go in the summer, but also that was cancelled because of Corona.
No,
So that's rain check number 2. I have a long bucket list, as you know.
Doug will be a bit later than 2 weeks' time. So 2 weeks' time, it's going to be Martin on Devon and Cornwall, which would be very good.
I'll probably pick out a few special locations rather than be too general, because it's rather a big subject. So I'll pick a few special places out and show what I've got from them.
Yep, sounds good. All right, any questions of Henk? It was a very good presentation, by the way.
Very good.
Beautiful minerals.
Yeah, we've been through a lot of those places, but I haven't found stuff like that.
I have in Dalles, but it's always very small, so you have to look really careful at every nook and cranny.
Yeah. That's one thing, but making the right distinctions between different minerals is a hell of a job. I have a lot of assisting material, internet books, friends, you name it. But despite that, it's very hard to be sure of what you find without letting it analyzed formally. And formal analysis, you know, that costs a lot of money. So we don't do that every time. But so you have to live with some uncertainties. That's for sure.
Sometimes it's just too small to get analysed anyway. Paul, you had a question?
Yeah, so I was just wondering about the nature of the host rock, the volcanics. The sort of suite of minerals we're seeing there seems to suggest they're relatively high in silica, and I just wanted to see if that was the case. In terms of the regional geology of the extrusive volcanics, what's the go with that? Are they basaltic or more dacite?
Yeah, all the quarries are exploited because of basalt and lava. And for some reason, I don't know exactly why, the material in the Eiffel is very rich in minerals. It's incredibly rich. I also went to the Etna, which is comparable stuff, but without any mineralizations whatsoever. So apparently in some places you find a lot of things, and other places you don't find anything, but it's all basalt and lava. And pumice also, by the way.
Yep, thanks.
All right, any other questions for Henk? No? Okay. In that case, we'll fold this one and come back in 2 weeks' time.
Right.
Really good.
Yep.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, Henk. Breakfast time.
Supper time.
Lunchtime.
See you next
Take care, guys.
next time.
See you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.